Chris, now I think I'm going to ask you the most interesting question of this podcast.
Here we go.
How do you spot a liar?
There are three negotiator types: the assertive, the analyst, and the accommodator. And it's the caveman response, which is fight, flight, make friends. The assertive likes to fight. The analyst likes to calculate the best move, which is often simply withdrawing. And the accommodator loves to make friends with everybody. An assertive is going to lie by a technique which is known as gaslighting, start making accusations against you, trying to knock you off your feet. So, everybody worldwide, I think, understands what gaslighting is, telling you stuff about you that are just not true, trying to get you to believe it. You've attacked me. You didn't include me in your thinking process. You did this, you did that. So they're going to persecute you for doing something wrong. They're going to claim to be a victim of your actions. And then they're going to say, like, if you just stop doing that, I can fix everything. But they're on the attack. They're on the offense. That tends to be the tool of the assertive. Tends to, not exclusively. The analyst loves deception by the literal truth.
Deception by?
The literal truth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't lie per se. I just didn't tell you the whole truth. What would be an example of that? You're in a blind auction. You're the only bidder. You think there are lots of bidders. You're the only bidder. You got a friend on the selling team, and you got to say, look, you got to tell me where we're at. And your friend says, well, I can't tell you everything, but you are the low bidder. That's literally true. It's also literally true that you're the high bidder. He didn't lie. He just didn't tell the whole truth. Analysts love that. Love by deception by omission, deception by the literal truth. What I said was literally true. Now, I know you got a vastly different impression on what I said, but I didn't actually lie. That's actually the most common form of lying in the business community. I can't tell you everything. You're the low bidder. You're the high bidder, but I'm not going to tell you that either. So that's deception by omission, deception by the literal truth. Analysts love it, and it works so much as a defense mechanism that it's pretty common. Now, the accommodator, how are they going to lie to you? The phrase, baffle them with bullshit.
Bullshit.
You ask the analyst a question, or the accommodator a question, and they talk in a really playful, happy mood, and they get done, and you have no idea what they just said. None. You don't feel attacked. It seemed very collaborative, and they talked all over the place, and you just have no idea what they said. That's the accommodator's way of lying. So if I sense any one of those three to start with, I'm going to watch out for it. And so then I'm going to talk with you a little bit enough so that I get a feel for how you lie. And what's more important is I'm going to get a feel for you on how you tell the truth. And so then anytime if you tell the truth, now maybe you don't tell the truth at all. That's entirely possible, which then means I shouldn't trust you because you never tell the truth. But if I can get a feel for how you tell the truth, then if you start to baffle me, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't understand that at all. It's probably a lie. If you're attacking me, all right, so you've really thrown me off my game. If you said to me something like, well, you're just not being fair here, that's an attack. Or if you give me a really concise answer, I got to think about what's missing. What didn't you say? What should go along with this if it was true? I can't tell you everything. You're the low bidder. How many bidders are there? Stuff like that. So that's how you try to tease out whether or not the other side's lying to you.
Is there a way to categorize assertive, analyst, and accommodator by throwing in some cues?
The most obvious one, the assertive is always going to sound like an assertive. They're going to be direct and honest. They're going to be blunt. It's been described that an assertive, it feels like getting hit in the face with a brick. Their tone of voice is just going to be harsh. Nobody ever masquerades as an assertive. If they sound like an assertive, if they're blunt, they are. They want to be heard and respected. Respect is number one. Respect is more important than the deal.
Oh.
The analyst is going to often feel detached.
Okay.
They're almost like the late night FM DJ voice, but they're going to come off as cold and detached inadvertently.
For example?
You may ask them a question, and they just go, no, and stare at you and not add anything. Their voice is just going to feel distant. Now, they're not distant people. The analyst analyzes so much, they're up in their head. They're up in their head a lot. And so they're going to come off in that way. Now, occasionally, the analyst will come off as an accommodator. Really happy, bubbly. The accommodators are always positive, upbeat, hopeful, love dealing with you, love having a great interaction. It's really important to them that you have a great interaction. Now, every now and then, an analyst is going to seem like an accommodator because the analysts are annoyed by the accommodators.
Analysts are?
Annoyed by the accommodators because the accommodators make lots of deals. Like, people love them, and they make all these deals. Now, the deals are usually reckless and lack implementation and have a tendency to be train wrecks because there's no details. But analysts analyze things, and they analyze that this upbeat, hopeful attitude creates more deals. So an analyst will occasionally masquerade as an accommodator because they analyzed what happened and they said, they smiled and laughed and talked a lot and they made more deals than I'm making. So if I combine my analytical skills with their people skills, I can be really dangerous. So every now and then you'll call somebody out as an accommodator and point of fact they're an analyst.
And what is the best way to negotiate with an assertive analyst and accommodator?
You get back to the two basic skills, the labels and the mirrors. So if you start by labeling and mirroring to begin with, now you begin to understand who the other side is by how much they talk, how assertive they are, how happy they are, how detailed they are. Then each one of those begins to give you more indicators of the type on the other side. The real importance of the type on the other side is that impasse more than anything else. Not in actually making the deal, but false impasses are caused by type mismatch.
What does that mean?
You might think the assertive doesn't like you at all and stop dealing with them. When the assertive loves you, that's just their manner. Like there was a commercial a long time ago, this famous football coach who coaches for the San Diego Chargers now. And in the commercial, he's going like, I'm not yelling, I'm not angry. He's not mad, but it sounds like he's mad at you. It's just the passion of the assertive coming through. And so that'll be a mismatch. The analyst won't want to have anything to do with it because they don't want to get yelled at. The accommodator's feelings are going to be hurt because they feel that they've set the assertive off. The assertive's just talking in their normal tone of voice. So what the original point, that creates impasse. When there was no impasse, the assertive just wants to be heard. The assertive wants to feel in control. The assertive wants to be respected. I don't care if I make the deal with you as long as you respect me. That's the assertive's approach.
So the best way to deal with an assertive would be to respect them.
And you respect them by summarizing. You respect them by mirroring. And they love to be asked what and how questions because it makes them feel important.
That's how you give them the illusion of control.
The illusion of control.
Beautiful. Now let's come to analyst. How do you make a great deal with an analyst?
You say to them, it seems like you've given this a lot of thought. Because they have. And analysts love data. One of their favorite words in the world is data. They want data. And so what's critical with an analyst is you can never disagree with an analyst because that is to attack their data, which attacks their integrity. It's insulting. What you do want to say is, I've got different data. Let's compare. Instead of disagreeing. You can't say, I think you're wrong. You can say, I got different data. Let's compare the data. Then they're open to it.
And what about the accommodator?
So the accommodator just wants us to have a great time. So accommodators' feelings get hurt easily. So if all right, so it seems like this is important to you, that respects their feelings. That's the use of a label that's adjusted for an accommodator. Well, they're very hope oriented, and it's my belief. If a third of the world is accommodators, and it doesn't matter what country you're in, China, India, Peru, Vietnam, they're poor on implementation details, and that's why I believe the phrase "hope is not a strategy" is heard everywhere in the business world. Hope is not a strategy. Accommodators proceed on lots of hope and very little detail, which is why oftentimes their deals run into implementation problems. Now, hope is essential and it's inadequate. You got to be hopeful in business, otherwise you wouldn't be there. So it's essential and it's inadequate. So getting accommodators to recognize, all right, your hope is an essential element. I love your optimism. I love your hope. It's inadequate because we need details. And that's how you respect where they're coming from and add to it instead of rejecting. You're too hopeful. Some people say hope is not a strategy because all by itself it's inadequate and it's going to cause problems.
If this clip gave you value, please subscribe to this channel so that we can keep bringing you game-changing business insights.